to the practice of being human. Today's episode, it comes from one of those very full circle moments in life, the kind that sneaks up on you and leaves you feeling tender and grateful. And this is in light of a coffee visit that I sat down to have with a young lady. We're going to call her Eliza. She, many years ago, was the Pied Piper with our kiddos. When they were little humans, she was our babysitter extraordinaire. One of them, we had a few in the queue, and she was just delightful. She was one of those rare people that came into our family's life and really left an imprint. We were so blessed with such good humans, many of whom coming from Notre Dame. She was a college student at the time, and she helped with the kids, but she was so much more than a babysitter. And what I think of when I think of her is joy. And she had an incredible imagination. She was so much energy. And like I said, she was like the Pied Piper. The kids just delighted in her presence. And I always breathed a sigh of relief when she would come in because I'd think, okay, now I can focus on whatever else I've got going on. And I know they're in good hands. I mean, there's nothing better than that. I also had someone that I think about, dear Rachel, is another one who I just have the warmest feels in my heart for these young women. Anyway, my kids adored Eliza because she knew how to kind of enter their world, right? She had that kind of imagination. She was creative. She was playful, organized, fun, all the things you want in a babysitter, right? She had this beautiful combination of competence and sparkle. She always had kind of that look in her eye, gleam in her eye, and she was the kind of person who could just make things happen while also keeping the kids safe and somehow kind of turning the ordinary into an adventure. And so here she is, all these years later. I think we're 20 years out from when she was last with us, and she's married. She has two children of her own, and she is in a whole new age and stage. She's in such a new chapter. And I was sitting across from her. I had the pleasure of meeting up with her, and we were just sharing a coffee. And I just sat and listened a lot to her life. And she talked about marriage and motherhood, especially motherhood, because I felt that that seemed to be the one that had held the most tenderness to her and for her. And certainly for me, this kind of rose up in me a deep tenderness as well, because I could still see this young woman that I remembered. And I remember the light and the capability. And she still has that, right? She has this high energy. She has this incredible goodness. But I could see something else. And what I could see was just how life had grown her, right? And that's such an incredible gift to be able to witness how motherhood stretched her, how life and love had softened her, and how hard things had tenderized her. And I thought, isn't this what happens to all of us? Life has its way, right? And if we're here long enough and we stay open to the degree that we're willing to be open, there is so much for us to lean into and to excavate us and hone us. And I think we step into love with all the hope in the world and energy and good intentions. And this happens when we get married. It's when we become parents. We build these lives. We think we've got, we're entering this next chapter and we are in the driver's seat. And we are to the degree that we are. But here's often the surprise for all of us is that we're also entering into an excavation and a becoming. It's this holy undoing. Because here's the thing about marriage and parenting. They do not just add up to people in our lives, right? They're not just these things that are perfect. They're so far from perfect, and yet they're so gorgeous because what they do is they reveal us to ourselves. And that in every way shocked me and continues to really floor me because I think about how my kids and Craig continue to help me reveal parts of myself to myself. So after our coffee, which was an emotional one, I could kind of feel it on both sides for us. And when I said goodbye, because I had to get on a coaching call, I sent her a text because I knew she'd be on a flight home this morning. And so I was trying to put words around our visit. And I was wanting to share with her what I had witnessed, the beauty, the tenderness, the stretching, the places where motherhood I had experienced just in our conversation, asked more of her than she could ever have imagined. And that was really how she talked about it, that there were things that just brought her to her knees. So I tried to kind of share my observations and also coming from an incredibly loving place and soft place. And she responded, I think probably after she had arrived home, she said, "This got me in all the feels." And I smiled because I think sometimes that is how we know something has landed. And I love when my clients, if I send them a summary of a conversation we had, a session, or there's just something they've sent me on an audio and I respond, I know when they say, "Hey, this really helped," or "Yes, now I see something," or "Thank you for seeing me." It lands and there's a resonance to it. And it's not that it was perfectly said, but because it touches on the true thing. So the part of us that has been carrying so much and no one has really maybe put words to, we ourselves are having a hard time doing so. And there's this part of us that feels both grateful and exhausted. It's the part of us that loves our people more than anything and also feels undone by the very life that we prayed for. And this is true for Eliza because she loves her people more than anything. And she also feels undone by this holy undoing, right? The very life she wanted, and to be a mama and to be married to her person. And that is where I want to begin today. Because so many of us, I think, enter marriage and parenting thinking we're going to just step into this very glorious, linear, happy, easy peasy kind of life that we wanted because we've chosen it, right? To the degree we've chosen it. And in so many ways, as I said, we are in the driver's seat on that and we make these choices. Now, what we're also stepping into is a life that will ask us to grow in ways that we have no idea that we need to grow and that we are not prepared for. And maybe, just maybe, if we're being honest, in ways that we were not interested in exploring. I'll speak for myself. That is true in my own life, but I think this is true across the board. That when we're honest and when we are being excavated in ways that we might not be interested in exploring because it's painful, it's hard, it's a place we've been, but we don't want to go back to. And so it conjures things in us that we're pretty good at avoiding until we can't. And kids and marriage have a way of bringing these things up and not going away. So when we think we're signing up for partnership and family and babies and birthday parties and bedtime stories and school drop-offs and vacations and traditions and a home full of life, yes to all of that, for sure. There is so much beauty in that. There's so much grace. There's so much meaning and laughter and sweetness. I love to think about when our kids would put their little hands or their sleepy heads on my shoulder, or when I would be just putting them to rest after a long day, a busy day, and just the sweetness of that, the preciousness of that. I remember their first words. I remember some of the ordinary moments that, as we know, become sacred simply because they are ours, right? But here's the thing, and I know you know there was a but. There's also something else. And there is the way that love exposes us. This, I don't believe we are really equipped for initially. We don't even know what we don't know. But that exposure, both in parenting and in the way that marriage, I think, reveals our patterns, if we're being honest. Think about the way that parenting touches the places in us that still feel painful, right? The places that need certainty or the places that want control. And I heard this over and over in Eliza's narrative. It's the places that we want everyone to be okay so that we can be okay. And the places that panic when life does not unfold according to plan. We were talking so much about uncertainty and our relationship to uncertainty. I mean, who knew what an important relationship that would be to build, right? But the more I build it, the more I'm like, this is essential because life brings so much uncertainty. And this is one of the things I wish more people told young adults, the importance of this skill, this muscle that you want to bring into your toolkit. Because as you step into marriage and parenting and life, these are not just milestones, my friends. These are initiations. And they are not just about finding the person or the job or having the wedding or having all the kids or buying the house, building all the things, doing the things. But they're about becoming someone you could not become without being stretched by love. So part of the conversation I had with Eliza, it moved me so much. Like I was so touched and emotional because I think it's happening more and more that these young people are kind of coming back to me, those that I've known when they were younger, and as they continue to unfold into these young, gorgeous adults, that I'm far enough now down the road to recognize what was happening and what is happening. Not because I have done life perfectly and far from it, right? But because I have lived enough life to know that so much of what we call struggle, so much of what we call struggle in this life is also formation. It's the good stuff. It's the gold. It's what we don't actively want to bring into our world, but it's often kind of planted there, or sometimes we learn to bring more of it in. But it is our excavation, it is our training ground. And I think about Craig and I have been married 27 years, and we've raised 4 children, and we've walked through seasons of uncertainty, change, grief, losing a parent, 2 parents, 3 parents. We have 1 standing, Gig Brummel, and a love of a human. We've been through the paces. We've been through the beauty and the heartbreak, repair, surrender, faith, joy. Yes, we've been through all of these things, and we have so much more. I hope that will continue to unfold because that means we're still here together, which I do hope we have more runway together. But this is the thing I want to say, that I might have read a lot of books. I might have done grad school, right? And I might have learned a lot of things. I've studied the theories, the concepts, and I've learned from incredibly wise teachers. And I continue to weave their wisdom into what I do. But more than anything, I've lived a life that has forced me to practice. And what I mean by this is that this practice helps me implement. It helps me take action. It helps me embody who it is, what it is that I want to become. So I take the concepts off the page and into the actual fire of being human, because this is what happens as humans, right? The theory sounds really good. It's beautiful. It might be kind of wrapped in a bow, but guess what tests it? Everything: marriage, kids, loss, friendship, disappointment. Life, my friends, will test all of these theories, these concepts, this way of thinking how life should be, and then how it actually is. Life is going to test us over and over. It's an adventure, it's a journey. My dad always said that to us when we were kids, and I now agree more and more. And over time, if we're willing, life begins to forge something in us. It's this training ground for our own values, our own principles, our way of seeing, right? How we show up in the world, who we are, how do we want to be, our own way of practicing, our own way of staying. I just listened to this incredible eulogy given by a son to his father. And his first question was, how do you want to live your life? Not who do you want to be, but how do you want to live? And this was the message his dad conveyed over and over to him and his siblings. And this is how his dad lived his life. How do I want to show up for this very precious one wild life that I have? And our own way of finding meaning and grace and mercy and peace and love and joy. How do we do that? Even in the fire, right? And this is why I love this work so much, because I'm not interested in helping people create a life that hurts, right? That's not the promise. I can't promise that you're not going to hurt, that you're not going to experience pain. But I'm not here to take that away. That's not being human. I'm interested in helping people become the kind of humans who can meet the life they've been given, this one wild, precious life, with more awareness, more freedom, more love, more curiosity, more truth. This is what we do, to look at what is happening and to ask, what is this teaching me? What is this revealing? Where am I being invited to soften and to grow? Where am I being invited to stop living on autopilot? Where am I being invited into more freedom? Because this, my friends, is the work. It's not escaping our lives. It's not perfecting our lives. It's not making it go a certain way, but it's waking up inside of our lives. And there is something especially precious to me about young people that I have known earlier in their lives, people like Eliza, and then getting to witness them years later as they segue into being partners and parents and adults and humans in their own right. It is such a pleasure, an honor, a gift. And it's one of the great delights of my life. To see the light that was always there, that's still there, but it's deeper now. And they might need it to be fanned. They might need it to be protected, that light. Because when I cross their path later on, they're a little more bruised and beaten and battered. But it's a deeper light now, right? It's more textured, it's more embodied, it's more human. And to see life doing what life does, which it's so good at growing us, honing us, softening us, teaching us. And yes, sometimes burning away what no longer belongs, which actually is such a gift, but it certainly doesn't feel good in the process. It's giving us so much. It's giving us meaning and mercy and grace and joy and love. There is so much goodness in all of this. And so often we enter these seasons thinking we're supposed to feel ready. It's supposed to be easier. It's supposed to be another way than it really is. And we think readiness means we're going to feel confident and we're going to feel calm and equipped and certain. No, much of adult life is not like that. And that's good, because marriage is going to ask things of you that dating never asked. The honeymoon never challenged you to go there. And the same is true for parenting, right? We think our kids are going to heal us, but parenting touches places in us that no amount of babysitting or reading or planning or imagining could have ever prepared you for. Because the real work is not just logistical. It's not just the bottles and the diapers and the schedules and the school forms and bedtime routines. And maybe if you're lucky with 4 kids like we had, orthodontist appointments and dinner and laundry, right? Like there were a lot of moving parts, lots of things going on, lots of practices, soccer, God knows, right? But the real work is internal. It's the moment your child struggles and suddenly, what do you feel but your own fear? It rises in your body. If we have the self-awareness around this, my friends, it's an incredible gift, because in these moments when our kids struggle or our spouse disappoints us, and suddenly in that disappointment, every old story about being alone or unseen or unchosen comes rushing to the surface. That feeling of being unchosen, right? It's the moment your child is misunderstood, or they might experience not being chosen, and your whole body wants to defend, explain, fix, protect, manage, or control. And this is a recent experience I had with one of my kids. But in that moment, and this is what I offer all of us, it's not just about them. It's also about me. And that realization can feel super confronting and uncomfortable because most of us do not enter marriage or parenting looking for an excavation. We want to kind of be looking outward, right? We're thinking if we just help you and help you figure this out and fix things and make it okay, then that's what my job is. No, we're not necessarily interested in having our wounds touched, right? We don't want the wounds touched. And we're not consciously signing up to meet our fear and our greatest wounds and meet our control and our impatience and our insecurities and our grief and our shame. And God knows our old survival strategies, right? We're not here for those things. We just think we're building a life. We are not aware that here it is. Life is saying what? Life is saying yes. And I want you to also come deeper. Come deeper into yourself. Come deeper into love. This is what life gives us the opportunity to do. Come deeper into yourself. Come deeper into love, into patience, into surrender. Come deeper into the places where you're still trying to control what is asking to be held. There is such a difference between controlling and holding with tenderness, with curiosity. And I want to be careful here because I do not believe, and I've said this before and I'll say this again, I do not believe our children are here to heal us. I think that is incredible pressure on our children. I think it is asking something that really isn't what's real, what's true. I don't think our children are responsible for our healing, but they do have a way of touching every wound we have. And they touch into those spaces, our ache for control, our fear of being judged, our touch when you think of our perfectionism and how they can touch into that. And when things aren't going a certain way and in the way we think they should be going, oh, does that get us worked up, right? Our impatience, we can experience that on a dime. They touch our unprocessed grief. They touch our own unmet needs. Honestly, the unprocessed grief piece, I was just talking with my youngest daughter, and we were talking about relationship. And I was sharing with her an experience I had when I was in college with a young man that I was crazy about. And he was interested in me, but I wasn't his chosen one, right? He had others going on. And I didn't want to believe that. And I kept working so hard and thinking if I just leaned in more, that he'd see it and that it would be mutual. And it never fully was mutual until, funny enough, later down the road when I had moved on. He kind of came around. But the point was she was sharing with me some of her own hurt and not feeling like the chosen one was someone special. And it brought up a lot of emotion for me because I remember what it felt like. It hurts. It's painful. Their experiences are touching our own unprocessed grief and our own wounds and pain and unmet needs. And they touch the places where we still confuse being good with being safe. And they touch the places where we think, if I can just get everyone around me to be okay, then I can be okay. Sound familiar? And here's the thing. We have a choice when those places are touched. We can resist it. We can tighten. We can try harder. We can control more. We can make our child the problem, the focus. We can make our spouse the problem and blame and shame and point the finger outward. We can make ourselves the problem from judgment and shame. Or we can surrender a little and not collapse, not give up, not abandon structure or boundaries or support, but surrender the illusion that we can control our way into peace, or we can control our people into peace. And here's the question I want you to pause and ask. What is being touched in me right now? What am I afraid will happen? What am I trying to prevent? And what story am I telling myself about what this means? And then the golden question that I love to ask is, what would love do here? Not fear, not panic, not perfection. What would love do here? It's so clarifying, because that is the practice, my friends. It's to hold the fear without letting fear lead. Fear is going to be in the passenger seat. Love is in the driver's seat. Courage is in the driver's seat. To breathe through the panic without making panic the truth. To notice the tightening in the body and just soften an inch or two. And then to say, this feeling in my body, this is uncertainty. And I do not have to solve it right now. I don't need to solve all of it. I can just meet what is, and whatever I'm making this mean is only going to compound the feeling in my body. So if I think this is a problem or it shouldn't be this way, that uncertainty is going to grow, and it's going to get bigger and bigger. And the fear is going to get bigger and bigger. So instead of feeding into that narrative, I want you to say, I can take the next loving step. And then to say, this moment, it's fucking hard, but it is not proof that I'm failing. And to say, my child's struggle is information, right? It's an invitation. It's not a verdict on them. It is not a verdict on me, right? And then to think about this with marriage. My marriage, it's showing me something. It's exposing parts of me that I haven't maybe exposed to the air or have been exposed to the air before. My child is showing me something. My life is showing me something. So think about the gold mine that marriage, partnership, children, life, all of them are here to teach us, to grow us. And maybe, just maybe, I do not have to run from what is being revealed. Maybe I can stay. I can listen. Maybe I can become more available to the exact life that I'm living, because that, my friends, is one of the great invitations of marriage and parenthood. They tenderize us. Our children, our partners, life, it tenderizes us. It softens the parts of us that were built for protection, for performance. They stretch the parts of us that thought love meant control. They help us start to re-engage with, what does love really mean? Is it about control, or is it more about surrender and trust? They reveal the places where we've been bracing and holding on so tight, and they ask us to become more honest. Honesty is one of our superpowers. When we are willing to be honest and transparent with ourselves, most especially, we can do so with others. There's an authenticity to that. There is a leaning in and a way of being and showing up in the world. Like when you think about, how do I want to be? Who do I want to be when I'm doing this life? I want to be more honest, more humble, more embodied, more forgiving, and more awake. And for those of you who are young adults who might be listening to this, or newly married, newly parenting, or dreaming about that life one day, here it is. Here's what I want you to know. You do not have to be fully healed to begin. You do not have to be perfectly ready. You do not have to know exactly who you are before you enter love. But you do have to be willing to keep becoming. You have to be willing to be shown, to show yourself, to expose yourself to those parts of you, the vulnerable parts. You have to be willing to apologize, to repair, to learn your nervous system, to notice when you're trying to control because you're scared, right? So human. And in those moments when you're trying to control, how do you lean into love? What does that look like? How do you tell the truth? How do you ask for help? And how do you let love make you more compassionate instead of more defended? Because marriage and parenting, here's the thing, will not always feel like the life that you imagined. It's not going to be your fairy tale. Sometimes it's going to feel far more exhausting than you ever imagined possible. And sometimes it's going to feel far more beautiful than anything you could have ever planned. So there will be moments when you look at your spouse or your kids and you're going to think, I had no idea love could ask this much of me. And I had no idea love could give this much to me. So today, my friends, maybe the invitation is simple. Wherever you are and wherever you're feeling stretched, I want you to pause, place a hand on your heart, take one breath, and ask, what is this moment trying to show me? What part of me is afraid? What part of me wants to control? What part of me needs compassion? And what is the next loving step? Not the perfect step, because we're never going to take that step, right? We got to be in real, we got to be honest, and we got to come from love. What is the next loving step? Not the step that guarantees the outcome, just the next loving step. Because our kids do not need perfect parents. Our spouses, our partners, they do not need perfect partners. The people we love need us willing. And this is what I said to Eliza over and over. Her kiddos, her girls need her to see that she is willing to soften, willing to repair, willing to listen, willing to grow, willing to become more free. And maybe that is the holy surprise of it all. We think we're here to raise them. We think we're here to love them. We think we're here to build this life, this incredible life, which we are building, and we are, right? But also somehow, through the mess and the beauty and the fear and the tenderness, life, our partners, our kids are raising us too. So life is loving us into expansion, and life is showing us where we are not yet free. And the invitation, my friends, again and again, is to open, to breathe, to surrender a little more, to let love do what love came to do. And that is the practice. That is the practice of being human. And I am right here with you. I'll see you all next week. So much love.